Leading the SEA Games contingents are the country's chef de mission. As the heads of the sports delegations for these games, the chef de missions play a pivotal role as team managers of the national contingent, mentors and supporters to motivate and inspire the athletes. We thank them for leading their countries throughout the games.
So here they are, the 11 nations that have competed over the past 12 days. The fourth time that Singapore has hosted the Southeast Asian Games. The 28th edition of this regional event. All the sports, as you can see, celebrated. And the first country to come in will be the medal table leaders, Thailand.
Thailand's had a fabulous games. They've dominated the top of the medals rankings in recent editions of the SEA Games. Second games running, they finished top of the medals tables, 13th overall, and top for the fourth time in the last 5 games. 95 golds here for the Thai delegation. Of course, Singapore having a fabulous performance too, finishing second only to the Thais.
Yeah, Singapore winning medals in 33 out of 36 sports here at the SEA Games. Dr. Tony Tan, you just saw entering the stadium, saying it's a fantastic performance across the board. So proud of its athletes. And of course, it's a birthday party, as we heard earlier on. Joseph Schooling, the star of the show, 20 years of age today, the swimmer. And what a night to celebrate as well. A
real hero of the games. And there have been plenty for Singapore. Lee Tao as well. 4 golds in the pool, 3 athletic golds for the host nation. And let's not forget the likes of Peter Gilchrist as well, dominating the bays. 2 gold medals for him in billiards. And indeed, the last time Singapore finished second in the medals table, 1975. So it is an historic performance.
Oh, the largest delegation, of course, from Indonesia, Malaysia and from Singapore. The Malaysians there, they'll be hosting next time in Kuala Lumpur in 2 years' time. Indonesia, of course, themselves getting ready to host the big one, the Asian Games, in 3 years.
47 golds for the Indonesians, 62 for the Malaysians. Indonesia 5th on the medals table. Malaysia a spot higher in 4th place. That improves on their performance from 2 years ago when they finished 5th. And indeed, it is significant that the next SEA Games are heading to Kuala Lumpur and Kuching in 2 years' time.
The side of Cambodia a moment ago there, just 1 gold medal for them, 8th in the medals table, 15 overall. But spare a thought as well, Andy. Laos, Brunei, Timor-Leste, 3 countries all failing to win a gold medal.
Yeah, shame for Laos. 13 golds they registered 2 years ago in Myanmar. 0, I'm afraid, this year. 9th in the medals table, 25 bronzes in there. And of course, Timor-Leste with a silver and a bronze. 59 athletes Timor-Leste contributed to these games, so clearly not the biggest delegation, but plenty of experience gathered amongst their athletes for further SEA Games.
Well, Philippines, one of the big sporting nations of the region, they finished 6th overall with 29 gold medals, 36 in the silver bracket, 66 bronze, 131 in total.
And a hero in the making for Philippines with Umir Marcial, who was brilliant in the boxing, beat the defending champion and home favourite on his way to a welterweight gold. He's tipped for big things at the Olympics, no less, in Rio next year.
A round of applause for our Team Singapore athletes.
We see Myanmar coming in on the screen, and you just heard as we look back at some of the images from the game being played out on the projector on the football pitch down there. A huge cheer for the home athletes, Singapore. We mentioned the success they've had, and for such a small nation in terms of population and size, to finish second in the medals table, it really is a wonderful achievement.
And let's not forget, for the first week of these SEA Games, they topped the list. Overhauled ultimately by Thailand. Plenty were expecting that, but it was fantastic for Singapore to hang on to second in the medals table. Of course, they did get the most amount of medals overall, but were out-golded, if you will, by the Thais. 747 athletes from the host nation, and quite brilliant over the past fortnight here.
Oh, it's just a wonderful place to be around at the minute. 50 years of independence, the Golden Jubilee year, the fourth time that the nation's welcomed the whole region to party at the SEA Games. Everybody's smiling, joy around, brand new sports venues. You and I were commenting when we walked into the stadium today how great everything looked. They really have put on a splendid games in every sense, not just on the sporting field.
Well, hosting these games certainly brought the best out of Singapore. 25 games records broken by their athletes, 29 national records, 75 PBs no less, amongst swimmers, amongst athletes, and the whole gamut really of sport here in Singapore. 36 sports in all, over 400 gold medals awarded over the past 2 weeks.
Well, still they stream into the stadium. As we look at it, all of the athletes will go and sit down on the far side in the west stand. We'll see the athletes, of course, return later in the show as well. We're going to learn a little bit about Singapore's history. We'll see a professional performance too from Malaysia. You can see the flags on the left-hand side of the hosts of the next Southeast Asian Games, and the neighbours from the north, not too far away, the Johor Strait, the northern part of Malaysia.
Nice shot just a few moments ago of the Myanmar athletes. There'll be a few tired legs amongst that here in the National Stadium last night. Their footballers overcome at the final hurdle by the Thais in the football final. A fantastic performance from Myanmar, who hosted these games last time out.
It's always a much more informal occasion, the closing ceremony of any major games. We're getting that impression here. Athletes roughly bung together in their nationalities, but we've seen lots of different athletes in different countries mixing here. Singapore coming out in waves, dribs and drabs. You can just imagine that every single one of their athletes will want to parade in front of the home crowd tonight. A very, very close to capacity Singapore National Stadium this evening. Musical performances still to come, as well as the aforementioned culture and dance.
So, as we know, Singapore have hosted this event 3 times down the years, but certainly it's special this year because it is the 50-year anniversary, the celebration of independence. So these athletes writing their names very indelibly into the history books.
Well, the Singaporeans first competed as an independent nation at these games back in 1965. And of course today, they completed something that they started all the way back when they first began at these games. They won the water polo men's competition for a 26th consecutive time. That is an absolutely outstanding achievement.
There have been plenty of them from home athletes. I suppose the tone was set really for the host nation with Joseph Schooling in the early days of these SEA Games. He was tipped to dominate in the pool, and that's exactly what he did. An extraordinary performance, complemented by Lee Tao with 4 golds as well. The last time they hosted this event 22 years ago, they finished 4th in the medals table, so went 2 better this year. 50 golds there and 84 golds in total over the last 2 weeks for Team Singapore.
Oh, the image you can see projected on the roof there is the flag of the Southeast Asian Games. As you can see, just look at the faces. Already a party being had. 4,500 athletes taking part at these SEA Games. 11 nations, we remind you as well. Singapore hosts this time around.
And being flanked by the volunteers, the wonderful volunteers, numbering some 17,000 here in Singapore, and there'll be a special tribute to those as well before we're out here, but certainly adding to the party atmosphere inside Singapore's National Stadium.
And as you can see from the parade of athletes, from everybody present, the great diverse ethnicity of this city is one of its many strengths. It's such a melting pot of cultures, people, cultures and opinions. That's made it such an interesting 12 days we've seen so far. Last year the athletes just making their way around to their seats. And they'll be on with the official ceremony, the closure of the games. Games will be closed, by the way, by the President himself. And then we'll go on to the cultural performances.
And a reminder, as if it were needed, of just how far the SEA Games have come since those humble beginnings in the late 1950s. Southeast Asia Peninsula Games was the name for this event in the early days. 6 countries started out. Slowly as the event grew, did the number of eligible nations too, sending delegations, sending competitive squads. 12 sports were on the roster to begin with, and now 36. It's all gold medals won in Singapore.
Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy a special video tribute to the volunteers of the Southeast Asian Games. These thousands of volunteers, the backbone of the Games, have worked tirelessly throughout the past 12 days. Let's show them our unanimous support.
While the athletes work hard to do their countries proud, we should always remember the volunteers, Team Nila. No matter how hard the athletes train, SEA Games can only be a success with the volunteers. Thank you very much.
Volunteering actually builds one character. You get to work with different kind of people. Most of us end up being more than just a hi-bye friend. It's friends that we actually would hang out with. That's the thing that makes this SEA Games a special one for me.
To volunteer is to serve. We have been served a lot of times, and now it's our turn to return this service and to make this SEA Games a very successful one.
Age is no barrier. As long as I'm healthy, physically fit and mentally alert, I can do volunteer service to the society.
Without them, we won't be where we are. Because of them, that is why we are able to be performing our best in our competitions. So thank you, volunteers.
Please welcome the volunteers of the 28th Southeast Asian Games. These 500 people represent more than 17,000 volunteers who have contributed to the success of the Games.
As we start rehearsing every scene, the words to everything, we realize that the crowd is listening, and then the tears fall down on your face, and exactly the right place, as the people start to stand up in the aisle. You can hear the sound of violence.
Well, forget all the medals, forget all the ceremonies, forget the sport. These are the thousands and thousands of smiley faces, the helpful nature of everybody that's welcomed each and every person interested in sport in Southeast Asia to these games in Singapore.
Yeah, they call themselves Team Nila after the mascot of these SEA Games.
Thank you, Team Nila. Terima kasih, Team Nila. Selamat, Team Nila.
Hi, we are Team Singapore Rugby.
We would like to say a big thank you to the volunteers and extend a bigger thank you to
Team Nila.
Thank you, Team Nila. Thank you, Team Nila.
Thank you, Team Nila.
We would like to say thank you to
Team Nila.
So indeed, over 17,000 volunteers helping spectators at event venues, web journalists, media relations, photographers, every conceivable service provided by these wonderful and generous volunteers. And indeed, Singapore, this city-state, has established something of a precedent with the hosting of the Youth Olympics as recently as 5 years ago. many ways a dress rehearsal for the SEA Games 2050.
This has been an extraordinary SEA Games, and everything that we've experienced over the last 2 weeks has been made possible because of the contributions and hard work of all our Team Nila volunteers. So from the bottom of our hearts, I want to say a very big thank you to each and every volunteer. You have made this SEA Games special. We could not have done it without you.
Team Nila!
Once again, a big thank you to all the volunteers for your dedication and for contributing to the success of the Games. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ng Se Myang, International Olympic Committee member and chairman of the IOC Finance Commission, on behalf of Mr. Thomas Bach, President of the International Olympic Committee, will present the IOC President's Trophy to Mr. Lawrence Wong, Chairman, Singapore Southeast Asian Games Organizing Committee, and also to Mr. Tan Chuan Jin, President of the SEA Games Federation and President of the Singapore National Olympic Council. The IOC is honoring Mr. Lawrence Wong for a successful 28th SEA Games in Singapore. The Singapore Southeast Asian Games Organizing Committee created an extraordinary, welcoming and safe games for our athletes in Southeast Asia. This award symbolizes IOC's appreciation to the government and people of Singapore for hosting a memorable 28th Southeast Asia Games. The IOC is also honoring Mr. Tan Chuan Jin for Singapore's leadership of the SEA Games Federation, for his active involvement in steering the federation, and for making marked progress in several key missions to keep the SEA Games relevant and an important games in our region. The Federation has successfully mustered the youth of the region together at the Games to celebrate friendship, harmony, and the spirit of Olympism. This award symbolizes IOC's appreciation to all countries of the SEA Games Federation for participating in the SEA Games. Mr. Ng Ser Miang, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Ng Ser Miang. Ladies and gentlemen, may we now invite Mr. Tan Chuan Jin to deliver his speech.
President Tony Tan, Your Royal Highnesses, Excellencies, members of the IOC and Southeast Asian Games Federation, ladies and gentlemen, friends. We are reaching the end of the 28th SEA Games. On behalf of the SEA Games Federation, I would like to thank Singapore and all Singaporeans for hosting an extraordinary SEA Games. Thank you very much. These games will be a memorable one for many of us for years to come. It has been made possible by all the countries in the region. It was made special because of you, the athletes on the stage, the officials and volunteers behind the scenes, and all of you spectators in the stands. During the games, we often only see what happens on the competition arenas, and that can be over as quickly as a matter of seconds, like in the 100 meters sprint. We also often only remember the triumph, those who made the podium, and not those who come just shy of a medal. But behind all of these lie a common trait: months and years of hard work and sacrifice. There is no athlete who is not proud of representing his or her country, and no team which does not set out to do its best. We see the same in the coaches, trainers, support staff, family and friends who have all given their all. Remember this as we cheer them on. Athletes and officials, you have all been proud ambassadors of your country. Our athletes inspire us not just with the records and the medals, but also with the spirit. We watch with admiration 11-year-old U Shun Leymore from Myanmar when she fearlessly competed against her older counterparts in the swimming pool. We applauded with respect Singapore's Ashley Liu for pausing to wait for other runners when they took a wrong turn in the marathon. These games would not have been possible without the dedication of the nearly 17,000 individuals from Team Nila, who have made all of us feel welcome. Thank you very much. We smiled at 87-year-old Joseph Tan, who supported as a volunteer photographer. We beamed with pride at Amin bin Rosli, who did not let his autism get in the way of fulfilling his role as a stretcher bearer and performer during the opening ceremony. Along with the security personnel, cleaners, and so many who worked round the clock to enable the games to go on, thank you all for your tireless dedication and hard work. And of course, to all the fans, what would these games be without all of you? You cheered your heart out and stomped your feet sore. It was near hysteria at many of the events, and we loved it. We are glad to see so many of our Southeast Asian friends here in Singapore turning out in droves to support their home nations. From my Facebook, Tak Yong shared how he saw Thai fans holding up the word friend along with the Thai and Indonesian flags during the football semi-finals. Christopher, who was an usher at squash, saw many athletes meeting up with old fighting mates and high-fiving and hugging each other. He shared, so nice and heartwarming. What I saw was friendship first, competition second. Great. Melissa shared that Malaysian hockey fan supporters, even as they were celebrating their team's win over Singapore, did not neglect to cheer and say, "Good job, Singapore," holding a Singapore scarf in one hand and a Malaysian flag in the other. These are the people and events that made the Games. This is what ASEAN is all about. During the Games, an earthquake struck Mount Kinabalu in Sabah. A number of lives were lost. 9 came from Tanjong Katong Primary School, but it was not just Singapore who faced loss. Other countries, including our neighbours, were also affected. Thank you to so many of our athletes who visited the school to pay their respects and tribute, even while competitions were still on. While we are devastated at the loss, there's also much to be inspired by the way the students and teachers lived. I would like to end by reading from the blog put up by the teachers and students. This was their last post before the earthquake. Their blog was entitled, "It's not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves." Though it was an exhausting hike to Pendant Hut, step by step, inch by inch, we all made it up. It wasn't easy, but they all succeeded getting up there. How did they make it up? The answer? Each other. They encouraged each other. They helped their friends by retrieving water bottles from their bags when it was hard to reach. They checked in with their friends by asking, "How are you? Are you okay?" They were effective. They pressed on. They utilized each other to give them strength. Eventually, they reached Pendant Hut together. This is the spirit of endeavor, of never giving up. This is also the spirit of teamwork and friendship, where together we are strong. And these are the same qualities that we have witnessed and celebrated throughout the 28th SEA Games. Let us continue to keep this spirit burning in us and build closer ties in kinship as we progress together as a region. On behalf of all of us here in Singapore, we say thank you for this truly wonderful experience. I wish you all a safe journey home and see you all in Malaysia in 2017. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tan Chuan Jin. May we now invite President Tony Tan to declare the Games closed.
I declare the Southeast Asian Games closed. I call upon the youth of Southeast Asia to assemble 2 years from now in Malaysia. To celebrate the 29th edition of the Games.
In the iron grave, so what is the flag but a cloth to wrap my spirit? What is the race but a dance with my friends through the fire?
Charlie Lim with his original composition, Still. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the host nation of the 29th Southeast Asian Games in 2017, Malaysia. Representing the host nation, we are honored to have His Royal Highness Prince Imran, President of the Olympic Council of Malaysia and incoming President of the Southeast Asian Games Federation, and the Honorable Mr. Khairi Jamaluddin, Minister for Youth and Sports and Chairman of the 29th Southeast Asian Games Organizing Committee.
Gemuruh jiwa, semangat membara, dari puncak ingin ke angkasa, berkalungkan bintang, berkelipan, menyala jauh dari yang biasa. Gemuruh jiwa,
May we now invite Mr. Tan Chuan Jin to hand over the flag to His Royal Highness Prince Imran, who will then hand it over to the Honorable Mr. Khairi Jamaluddin. Please rise for the Malaysian National Anthem. Thank you, Mr. Tan Chuan Jin, His Royal Highness Prince Imran, Mr. Lawrence Wong, and the Honorable Mr. Khairi Jamaluddin. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy a performance by the host country of the 29th Southeast Asian Games, Malaysia.
So we're about to see a performance named Diversity in Motion, Majmuk Dalam Gerak. It's in 3 parts, beginning with light, shadow and birth, the most ancestral of belief. How one learns to see through the light, breaking the cocoon to breathe life, and guiding life to fruition, bringing creativity into the light.
Segala jiwa dan ragamu, segalanya untuk tanah airmu. Bahaya menanti, mesti berakhir.
si adiwira, lautan dalam tetap diduga, ditenggelami lemas diuji, pantang menyerah sebelum mati.
The theme for part 2, building foundations, seeking strength in numbers, understanding the place we come from and how we come to be where we are today. Living but remembering yesterday, moving in the moment, swept up by the things to come towards a better tomorrow, a fitting metaphor for the upcoming SEA Games. Celebrating aesthetics of athleticism now.
United. Kitsap Tuan in Malaysian, and uniting belief, displaying the pride of a nation, most importantly focusing creativity and bringing joy from it. The voice of many a nation which is still growing and struggling, still learning, a nation never too proud to ask. Never too far from the future she desires, yet very close to the promise of a very much better life ahead. Malaysia, a nation of many expressions, celebrating diversity today, never divided and forever united. So Malaysia awaits in 2017 for the 29th Southeast Asian Games.
Thank you, Malaysia, for that inspiring performance.